Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, look at those smiles. Thank you for coming today. Sodexo is so excited to host the Women in FM Roundtable today. We saw many of you stop by our booth today. And so just wanted to thank all of you for your time. It's going to be an exciting hour and 20 minutes, hour and 10 minutes. And then we're going to head on out the doors to the reception, the cocktail reception. So we want to get to learn a little bit more about your backgrounds as well. I would like to, at this time, thank everybody that supported from Sodexo. Could you stand up? All of our Sodexo operators and representatives. So, and Lisa Curry in the back. And I also want to thank NFMT for just their great partnership throughout all these years that we've been doing this. In the beginning, it was very small, and it has now grown to really become an event that we have a pretty large attendance at. So we're real excited, and just wanted to leave you this afternoon with this exciting panel, and thank you again for coming.
Okay, so we're going to be kind of covering everything to do with women in FM, leadership, and the conversation is very wide-ranging. The hallmark of this event, if you haven't been here before, is that it's super interactive. I am not going to hold questions to the end. So throughout, you see the mics on the floor, and I'm going to be running around with the mic in my hand as well. So if you have questions, there will be lots of opportunity to engage with the panel and with each other throughout the conversation. So just a high level, I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves more fully in just a minute. We have Jennifer Ressam, Assistant Executive Director with Energy Manager with Sodexo. Then we have Doreen Lorenzen, IT Manager with Hennepin County. And we have Stormy Friday, and she is President of the Friday Group. So, and I'm Naomi with Building, Operating, and Management, the Senior Editor. So to begin with, could you all just take a quick minute to introduce yourselves and tell us how you got, a little bit about your career and how you got to where you are now?
You're looking at me, so I'll go first. So I dreamed my whole life of being in facilities. No, not at all. I started in college. I started in engineering, and frankly, I found it dull. Sorry, engineers out there. And so then I made my way into being a marine biology major in environmental science, and I got a degree in that and a degree in biology, and I thought I'd be in the bay swimming with the fish and would love it forever. Found that it's very hard to get a job doing that pays you more than $9 an hour. So I worked for Department of Natural Resources, found my way into a hazardous waste department, also very glamorous, and then the energy office within the Department of Natural Resources in Delaware hired me on to work in their energy efficiency department, their energy office, and kind of found an affinity for it. I really loved it. I got out and talked to people. I was on TV shows talking about energy. We were going through deregulation. So from there, I went from Delaware's Energy Administration to Maryland's Energy Administration and worked for several state agencies doing energy performance contracting. You probably have heard of that. And energy services, also worked for utility, worked for several startups doing energy efficiency projects. What I decided is I wanted to work for a company that could see me, because I was traveling all over the country at the time. They could see me, I could go to an office, they could learn about what I could do, and they'd want me to do bigger things in the company. I found Sodexo, and they had an opening for an energy manager. Went to Sodexo as an energy manager, and then that role kind of morphed because the need was there. I think that's how we all kind of get into facilities. The role kind of morphs. We find our way into facilities because we find that there's a need for us to fill a gap. And that's how I became, actually my title now has changed. The two guys that stood up in the back are my former boss and my new boss. I'm now Director of Due Diligence and Transition in Sodexo, so I moved on from a site. And now I'm working across the country with a team of facility professionals that have been in the industry for years and years. Luckily, my new boss saw, and frankly my old boss, Jason, saw the potential in me to lead a team of facility managers doing due diligence and transition. And that's what I do currently.
Well, I'll go next. I'm Doreen Lorenzen, and I am from Hennepin County, which, if you don't know where that is, it's in Minneapolis. So, how did I get here? Well,
You dreamed of it too.
No, I didn't dream of it. I told them, please no. So I've been in the business of IT for 38 years. I started really young.
Yeah.
Or not. But the first 34 I spent doing like IT business kind of stuff, right? Project management. I had the web development team. I had the application support teams. I had the business analysts for a while. So they moved me around a lot. Well, comes the day that the data center manager is going to retire. And they said, Doreen, how about you take this on? And I said, no. Those people make a career doing that. And I don't know anything about KWs and K whatever they talk about. And they said, oh. So this was the end of February, a mere 4 years ago. And on May 13th, they came to my desk and said, effective tomorrow, it is yours. Oh. Thank you. Thank you very much. And besides that, we are going to kick off a project that is a $20 million uplift of our active data center, and you will be leading that and working with our facilities team for a total gut in a confined space while we keep it running and migrate another data center into it. And by the way, yes, the pond is still going to stay above you. I'm like, oh, boy. So lots of challenges, but it's been super, super fun. I've learned a lot. I do now know what things like rectifiers and a UPS look like. Yeah. I know what they look like when you blow them up. I know, yeah, because that was actually a really super cool part of the project. But it wasn't intentional, but it was fun. So I have learned a lot about critical facilities and working with our facilities team. Although I'm not in our facilities group, I am certainly part of the critical facilities team at Hennepin County.
I'm Stormy Friday, and I entered the world of facilities in an odd way. I was a happy management consultant, and one of my colleagues went to the Environmental Protection Agency as an appointee in the Reagan administration, and he called me and asked if I would come and help reorganize the Human Resources Department. I went and finished reorganizing the Human Resources Department, and I got a phone call from the administrator of EPA at the time. It was a woman named Ann Gorsuch Burford. You might have heard of Neil Gorsuch, our Supreme Court Justice. He is her son. And she called me into her office, and she said, Dear, this is a long time ago. She said, Dear, I understand you think you're a hotshot management consultant. And I have an organization that does light dusting, and it has a problem. She said, we call it the Facilities and Real Estate Organization. Would you be interested in going downstairs and fixing it? I did not know what facilities was at that time, but I thought, sure, she thinks I'm a hotshot management consultant. I can do this. And so I went downstairs, and it was literally downstairs in the basement, in the bowels of EPA, and inherited the facilities department. Now, at the time, she did not tell me that there were 1,000 people in my organization, including IT. I owned IT at the time. I owned all of the security staff. I owned 7 million square feet of real estate. I owned 26 laboratories around the country, and we found that we owned boats and planes and trains in Europe that nobody knew we had. So I fell into facility management. And when I needed to learn about it, people would come to me, the IT consultants would come in and say, well, your problem is you don't have an IT management system. This was long before we had facility management systems, but you don't have the right system. And I said, no, I don't think that's my problem here. And then other people would come in and say, well, if you would just take on bigger space issues, you know, it's all an engineering and a design problem. And I said, no, I don't think that's the problem. Long story short is I inherited an organization that had been told that what they did had absolutely nothing to do with the mission of EPA. That they were basically backroom folks, that it wasn't important what they did. And so my goal and my job was to make sure that the administrator of EPA knew how important our organization was to making the contribution to that business bottom line. And so I spent quite a few years doing that, and was probably the most fun thing that I ever did until I was called into, and then there was a change in administration, and I was a political appointee. There was a change in administration, and I was called into the new administrator's office, and I was told that I was doing too good a job and it was not to be tolerated. People on the Hill called us for the first time. We never had a relationship with Capitol Hill, and we increased the capital budget by a significant amount. We had never had a civilian agency strategic master plan, and EPA had the first one that ever existed. We had never had a customer service program before, and we initiated a customer service program. We had never had a work order management system, and it goes on and on and on. But we were doing too good a job, and it wasn't to be tolerated. So I was told that I was going to then be the new head of IT, because they had moved IT out of facilities. And I'm not an IT person. And so I said, guess what? Put me in an office, we'll call it the Aloha Suite, and I will be gone in about 6 months. And I was. And I went to work for a design build firm, and I was the interpreter between the architects and the engineers and the customers, because they couldn't understand what they were saying. And I realized that back then there was a great need in the facility management environment for people with management skills. And so I said, you know, this could be fun. I could do what I love doing, which is management consulting, but I could take what I learned at EPA and parlay that to facility management organizations, and that's what we've done for the last almost 30 years at the Friday Group. And so I kind of fell into facility management, and probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
So as we can see, we have this great breadth of experience here, people who have approached the industry from all sorts of angles and have been in it for quite a long time or less time. So this is fantastic. So the first question that I want to start off with is, what do you feel is the climate of FM today, and how have women helped to shape what FM looks like today?
Why are you looking at me?
Go ahead.
I'm perhaps the newest to FM, so I've only, technically, my title didn't change until about 3 months ago. But I've been kind of working in it for about 3 years. So for me, I think the climate of FM, facilities management, has changed. We see it has to change. There's a lot of individuals that I've met even here today, but a lot of individuals that I work with who are getting ready to retire. They're taking all of their knowledge with them, and I think we're almost a little scared and nervous in FM right now that we're going to be losing all this talent base, and we're not backfilling. So for me, that's what I'm seeing. I'm finding a lack of skilled trades to fill out my groups in skilled trades. I'm finding or there's more competition for those individuals with those highly skilled trades or highly experienced individuals out there. That's what's given an opportunity to me to get into facilities, but it also creates this big gap for us, and it's a little scary out there right now, I think, in facilities from that perspective.
I think there's also a change that's been happening. So if you went back and you looked at the facilities team that we had prior to our data center remodel, those guys were just the bomb. I mean, they'd come in and they'd go, oh, yep, looks like we got to do some maintenance on that equipment. And they'd go down and they'd fabricate parts, and they'd put things in my really old equipment, some of it 35 and 40 years old. They'd put it together, and we just kept on and running. Well, now we have all of the new gear, and it's all digital, and they're like, oh, we don't want to touch that. We might break it. So I think that there's a change that's coming, just as there's a change in how the data centers in my world will operate in the future with all the new technologies that are coming, cloud and whatnot, and how their jobs are going to change. Facilities is changing also. With our smart buildings, with all of the interconnected things, the Internet of Things, it's a whole new world. And it's something that we really are going to have to be bringing our staff along. And we have to encourage them and get them as excited about it as the rest of the people are that are kind of leading that charge. We need them to come with, and we need them to come with very, very soon. We need to work on upskilling them and getting them comfortable, because this is really the way that it will be going in the next 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, I agree with that.
30 years ago, this room would only have men in it. And 30 years ago, you would go to a conference or you would go to something dealing with facility management, and you'd be maybe 1 or 2 of us in a room. And it was a struggle back then. It was an effort to have your voice heard. Now, I think the time is absolutely right for women in facility management, because we bring strategy, we bring skill sets that have never been solid in the FM world. We are recognized and accepted. Women do well in the boardroom, communicating with people, in the C-suite. And I think statistics will bear this out, that as team leaders, we do an excellent job of the kind of nurturing the high-performance teams, and that's really important. Plus, the change is that women are now very credentialed in facility management. And that's something that I feel strongly about, and I know some of my colleagues in the room feel strongly about, that it's critical for women to go with a skill set and a credential in FM, because that adds value, and that allows you to stand out and make a big difference in an organizational setting.
Now, with the credential, and then to pick up Jennifer's point about the concern about backfilling, and then picking up on the point of this room is now full of women, what do you see as the future? Like, where have these women come from, right? Do you see that the industry is now attracting women and men in kind of equal numbers, and they're moving forward through their careers at an equal pace? Or what is this moment that we're in now, what does it mean for the future as far as how this industry is going to continue to develop?
So, I mean, you were a unicorn, right? Back in the day. And now there's a lot of unicorns around.
I
right?
still have the horn to prove it.
Yeah, I believe it. For me and my organization, I've never felt in any way like there was a ceiling there. So we have a lot of strong women in leadership roles throughout the organization, so it hasn't been there. Have women been moving up? Naomi, you mentioned, have we found it more difficult, or we see opportunities for women to move up at the same pace as men? I am seeing that more and more people, both men and women, are open to getting into facilities management roles, but we're also recognizing that both men and women bring different skill sets to the table that could be based upon our gender. But you mentioned nurturing. I'm a mama to my team, I feel like, and I feel like that skill set that I bring to the team is valuable, that nurturing aspect, and also being that mom, that team mom. In fact, my old boss used to call me you're being the mom. And that's a good thing. I think that there's room for both genders at the table, and there's value to it, and it brings value to your organization, to your company, having that difference of viewpoints. And we should respect both, and I'm seeing a lot of that within my organization. And it sounds like, Doreen, you had that similar experience. You saw a lot of value that they found for both of us, right?
Correct. So, at Hennepin, the assistant director which is the second highest position in our we call it facility services team, is held by a very knowledgeable, experienced, and highly thought of female, which is great. She provides a lot of direction for their department of over 400 facilities folks. Our building managers are female. So it's exciting to see the leadership roles that we have available. And part of the reason that they've grown to where they are is because of the skill sets that they bring, the transferable skills. Now, I'm not sure where Barbara and Christine actually got their start, but I know that they have tremendous leadership skills that they're able to apply every day. I come from a government position where our procurement says that you have to have females on the team. So, we had women pipe fitters on our project. We had women insulators on our project. Great people. Their attention to detail was second to none. It was a great job by all. So I think the county does a great job of trying to promote those skill sets and to make sure we have both introduction into those trades and carrying them all the way up through our executive positions. We don't have the board per se that some of the private industry has, but we do have a board of 7 commissioners that are elected. 4 of them are women, and the chairman of the board of commissioners is a female. So we have a strong leadership at the county. The county recognizes strong leadership in women. About 67% of the participants in our leadership training programs are females. So I think that I come from a background that they really embrace the skills that women can bring, be it nurturing, be it leadership, being a strategic vision, being a visionary, or being just a strong leader. It is something that we grasp and we hold very dear at the county.
And I agree with that. We often are asked to write position descriptions for our clients who are going to be hiring facility executives, and then sometimes we sit on the selection committee. And I think more and more we are seeing that there is an equality in terms of applicants, the applicant pool, and then the individuals that are selected. And more I find that our clients are organizations that are led by women. And I think there is an awareness now that it is basically the knowledge, the body of knowledge and the value that they bring to the table that is critical. And so I see it more as looking at the skill sets rather than are they gender orientation. And I think that's really quite a shift over the years. But I think people are getting smarter about what the needs are and what the roles have to be for the future, and so they want to make sure that they have the appropriate talent, whether it's male or female. But I certainly see a lot more women applying for positions in the facility management world than I ever have before, and I see the encouragement of the enterprise organization for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. When I was thinking about this panel, I was really inspired by how this year, this political cycle, we've seen a record number of women running for office, for example, and by campaigns like She Should Run. So this climate of women reaching for leadership, women reaching beyond maybe things that they've done in the past in greater numbers, and that was really exciting to me. So I was wondering how that kind of reflected in FM, and it seems like it's kind of maybe not part of the same whole, but in kind of the same energy field as that. So on this thread of developing and stepping up and claiming kind of leadership and claiming your power, how is career advancement, how do you see that working for women and men, but since it's women in FM, like how should people be thinking about that career advancement and going for that leadership position?
I think people really need to come to grips internally, first of all, and set those goals, right? Not everybody wants to be that manager, that director. Not everybody wants to be on the board.
That's okay. No.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But I think the thing that you still have to look at is skills are transferable, as Stormy was saying, right? So did I come in with all this great, vast knowledge of how the bowels of this building were put together 40 years before? Nope. I couldn't even remember what was on level B and C and D, but it didn't mean that I couldn't be a good leader. It didn't mean I wasn't strategic. It didn't mean that I couldn't communicate and coordinate and provide innovative solutions. So each one of you has that inside, and each one of you, as with the the participants in this session have really kind of taken that and said, this is where I strive to go, and each one of you, I challenge you to each say, where do I want to go, right? And I looked at it and said, I'm really good at strategy. I can put together a really good business case. I have a vision for how to make better services and how to improve that and bring value to the organization. I don't have to be the engineer because I got great engineers, and those guys are a great team, but they're not so much into metrics and having to give me all that data and that information about what's going on, right? So they're not gonna pony up and say, hey. But as a leader, I can set that forward, and I think that that's really what you want to do. So I think that as a strong leader, I'm able to really move into any position because my skills transfer. So I've worked hard over the years to build good, strong leadership, strategic thinking, communication, coordination, all those things that they always talk about in the leadership classes. I think that if people really look at that and they embrace that, the sky's the limit. There is no ceiling for you that you can't really bust through and really be a success at.
So I feel that it's important, like you mentioned, look within yourself. It starts with you. I don't feel that there's the limitations that we had in the day when, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. There was that feeling of limitation for women in the industry. I bet you've probably felt it many times. I don't feel that now, although I do see in facilities that we're not the norm still. But that's never stopped me or made me feel like I was different. It was just a decision to say, okay, I want to get here. How do I get there? I got to be able to, I got to put myself forward. I have to say, yeah, hey, I'd be interested in that, which was probably the toughest part for me. But also going and looking into how do I better myself? How do I get those credentials? How do I get skills and training for those things I'm not so good at? And then another side of it is the people that are employing folks in facilities. Are they looking for somebody that has it all, or are they looking for the person that has potential to grow beyond what that position could be? Are they looking for the person that might not know everything, and then you're going to hire them and they're going to get bored? You're looking for someone with potential that they can grow into those skills because they have certain skill sets in leadership, et cetera. I think it starts with us coming to the table and saying, yeah, I'm not afraid to have a challenge. I'm not afraid to try something different. And for many of us, I'd like to know how many people wanted to get into facilities and were coming out of college or high school and said, hey, I want to do facilities. There's not a lot of us, right? How many in the room said, I want to be in facilities when I grow up? So it was just a matter of finding, nobody. Denny, sit down. There's nobody. So
One person.
who was it?
She's right here, this young lady.
You
right
wanted to be in facilities? That's
Right here,
amazing.
yes. We need more of those.
Yes. And you did? Okay. So, that's a big deal. If I had met you when I was in college, I might have said, oh, yeah, I could do that too, but it wasn't even a concept in my mind. So I think that's an important piece now that we're reaching out.
I think, too, we have options that we didn't have before. You alluded to it a little bit in that you don't necessarily have to pursue just a managerial track, but if you want those technical skills, if you want to be an engineer and you want to pursue kind of the more technical track, we're getting smarter about it in the facility world, and that we're creating developmental programs that allow you to do that. Because as you said, not everybody wants to be the facility executive, but maybe you want to lead the team that is going to be responsible for innovation in operations and maintenance, or to design the most advanced building for the county or for your company. And so I think we're getting smarter about that too. You can figure out whether or not you think you want to be in the managerial realm and kind of pursue that and do developmental things within the organization that will allow you to do that. And many organizations now are getting really smart about creating those career tracks and paths. Or you can say, I really like the technical aspect. That's okay, but I can also achieve something. And then for some, and I've never understood why this isn't more widely accepted, but I think facility management is a very good stepping stone in a corporation to higher levels within that. I mean, who else knows everything except us in facilities? We know it all. And so once you know that, you have inside knowledge that most people in HR, procurement, marketing, development, they just don't have it. And so it's an excellent way to learn a company and then move up that career ladder. And there's nothing wrong with starting in facilities and then moving your way up that corporate ladder if you want.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about this like ladder of success and applying yourself and reaching for those goals. And if you really kind of apply yourself, there really should be no goal that you can't reach. But what are, I know it has not been just clear sailing, smooth skies, and no challenges. So could you talk a little bit about the challenges that you may have faced in your careers, big or small, that we might be sharing in the audience that we could learn from? And after that, I'm going to open up the floor to questions, so audience, be thinking about your questions. But challenges that you've overcome or had to work with in your careers.
Gosh, limited to one.
Is there just one?
Yeah, I don't think there's just one.
Well, I think, I'll start. I think one thing is I feel that people get where they achieve where they end up based on, a lot of it is on trust. By the people that trust them and by the people that they trust, right? Because if they trust you, if your boss trusts you, then they're going to give you more opportunities. The more opportunities you have, the better you have to move on, right? And my theory has always been, make sure that I have somebody that's coming along that can do my job behind me. Because if they got my job, that means I got a promotion to do something else. So I have to make sure that I trust the people coming along behind, that they're going to be able to do the things that they need to be able to do, and that they trust me to help them get there. And I have that same trust when I'm going forward, right? So, and I'm sure you're saying, no, so how is this a challenge, right? Well, in where I work, there's people that will be in the same position for 40 years. I've been at the county for 25 years, and I've had 7 different major assignments as a manager. So they've moved me around. And each time I've had to reestablish that trust. I've had new teams. I've had new executives that I had to work with. And every time it's been a success, and it's been a jumping point over to the next piece, because I've been able to create an environment that is sustainable. But then I end up back in now I have another group that I have to start over with again, right? So those are challenges, because there's always that, what if this group doesn't, oh my gosh, what am I going to do, So I think for me, one of those big challenges is looking at absolutely every challenge as an opportunity, right? I could look at it and say, I can't do that. Or I could look at it and say, whoa, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be fun. Think about what we're going to learn today. And I try to put that positive spin on it, because 7 changes in 25 years is a lot to develop teams, to develop programs. And then somebody said it's like having a baby, and then you have to send them off, and then you have to go have another baby. And I'm like, oh my gosh, 7 babies. Do I have to have any more? Please, can we just let them grow up here? So but it is about establishing that trust each and every time. You have to prove. I have to prove as they move me into a new group. And I have to prove to the group that I'm getting that I can be a good, strong leader for them, even though they've seen me around for many, many years. So I think building trust relationships is something that is critical to people's success, because the more you're trusted, the higher you're going to go in your organization.
I can take a different tact with that. A lot of what we do is behind the scenes. We're in a basement. I've been in a basement for 3 years now, and I've never had a tan in 3 years. we're the gnomes behind the walls, right? So how does our organization know what we do, find value in it? The first place they're going to cut is facilities. They don't really get it. It's like, where does my electricity really come from? And it's that plug in the wall. That's where it comes from. No, there's millions of things that go on behind the scenes in order to run that. And same thing with facilities. There's how do we show our value overall to the company that we work with? We typically only hear from them when there's a problem, right? I'm too hot, I'm too cold, this is broken, that's broken, why didn't you fix it yet? So it's the communication piece, and it's building the communication piece with the organization that you work for on how, and show the value of what you do. That's been a big challenge I've found. Once you bridge and create this really good relationship with your organization. Now, I was a contractor working within a banking company. You might have heard of Fannie Mae. Worked in facilities there for years. And once we really established a trusting relationship with our client, they started to get it. And the message was getting out there. And we weren't just the gnomes behind the walls. We were more a part of their organization. I think that's a big challenge to bridge for any of us in facilities is what value do we bring to our clients and the people that we work with.
And I think I would just echo that and piggyback on it a little bit. I think we don't do a very good job of marketing who we are and what we do. There's still a misperception about what facilities is all about after all these years. Sometimes it's hard to explain, and if you can't explain it, then it's hard to describe how you add value. I think, one of the questions was what was the challenge years ago when I decided I wanted to be in the facility management consulting business. I couldn't give that service away. I went to every A&E firm up and down the East Coast, and nobody was interested in doing it with me. We didn't have outsourced providers the way we do today, but the firms that might have been outsourced providers didn't want to get their hands dirty in facility management. We've come a long way, haven't we? Yeah. And so it was hard to convince people that the facility management profession or industry overall was one that was going to grow and flourish and added value. We just don't educate people well enough. And we see that within our companies, our institutions, they still don't understand it. So I think marketing and education will only help us the more we are able to describe how we add value and what we do is what helps us.
Okay, so audience, opening up the floor. What are your questions at this point about anything that we've talked about or a new question that you want to bring up?
My question is actually to the audience. Being the talent acquisition professional that I am, piggybacking off of something Jennifer said earlier about the workforce and aging workforce and getting the next generation ready, my question to the audience would be, number one, to someone that's a female. Now that you're in this rewarding career, have you actually reached back and grabbed somebody and told them about this career to help mentor or bring them along? And then my question to a male is, have you talked to someone that's opposite sex than you and told them how rewarding this career is and actually helping to mentor them? And the reason that I ask is once I got out of college, I actually landed a position at the world's busiest airport, and I was a quality assurance associate walking around inspecting the whole airport, but no one told me how rewarding the career is going to be. So guess what? I didn't stay in that. I end up getting a master's degree in organizational development and human resources. And so now I go out and recruit facility managers and directors. So it's a two-pronged question. So if someone from the audience can let us know, have you actually shared your career, whether it's a sister, daughter, niece, somebody, and help mentoring them along, or a mentoring program within your own organization. And then on the flip side of that, if someone that's a male can share, have you actually shared your this career with someone from the opposite sex, or if you're a part of your company mentoring program? I would like to hear that as well.
Oh, yay.
Up here,
You have the floor.
Carolyn.
Hi. So to answer your question, yes, I always advocate for more facility managers for female to come on board. Actually, my brother's girlfriend I've recruited her, and I was just like, hey, come join. We have, come join facility management. So just explaining to her that we do need more females. We need not just more females, but we also need more of a younger generation to come on board because we do have a gap. And also just explaining what are my everyday challenges. I get up at 2:30 in the morning sometimes because I have alarms. It just all the daily basis of all the daily challenges. So going into school or telling her, hey, go back to school, or hey, ask questions. So we need to advocate also for the facility management and also bringing girls over and telling everyone during Christmas time, during Hanukkah parties, and say, hey, this is a pretty cool place, and you get your hands dirty, and you get to talk in public, which is cool. But yes, recruit. We need recruiters. And we also have a student from facility management undergrad here today, which is awesome.
Yes.
So from City Tech.
Just to follow up on that, originally I was a theater major, and my mom was like, go apply for this internship. And it was like, oh, Broadway, yes, this is what I want. And inadvertently, that was in building operations for a company that owned 5 Broadway theaters. And the woman who ran it had been doing it for 30 years and had basically built the department from scratch. And she inspired me. I fell in love with it. And that internship ended. I futzed around. I ended up working in city government. But I was like, I need to get back to this because she inspired me so much. And I feel like there need to be more women reaching out the way she did to me, because there need to be more women in general. Speaking of which, my other question for you guys is, I'm in school for facilities management, and I am, in many of my classes, the only woman. In one class, there were 3 of us, and we were like, wow, all 3. And it's just confusing that no women are intentionally deciding to study this. It seems like every woman I've talked to at this conference fell into it sideways or slid into it. And is there a way you think we could pitch this better to high school students or college graduates? Because it's a great career, it's rewarding, it's fulfilling, and it's financially stable too, if that's something they're worried about. It's not like getting an English major. Says the person who studied theater for 4 years and focused on costume design.
So years ago when I went to college, there weren't any women taking engineering classes. I was one of 2, and I loved the odds. So, I mean, that's one way that way we can get women in it. The odds were great. I had all of those young fellows to myself. But then I got out of it, of course. But I think one way to, and I think we're seeing and evolving, we are seeing more women be interested and say, hey, there's opportunity here. And I think that's why you're selling it to your friends. There's an opportunity. There's a gap. If there's a gap, there's an opportunity. And how we encourage women to fill it. When I went to school, there wasn't facility manager classes. And I didn't even know there was a program, quite frankly. Where do you go to college?
New York City Tech.
Okay, New York City Tech.
City Tech.
Okay, City Tech, you call it? That was unheard of. Were there any facility management programs in universities when you were getting in the business? Because there certainly wasn't when I was in college.
Not back in the draconian era, but
That's not correct.
since then we have had, I can't remember how many academic programs there actually are, but there are a number of colleges and universities that, Cornell was one of the pioneers, and there are a number of them that you can still get a degree, an undergraduate degree, and master's degrees in facility management. But I think your point is a really good one, that we need to we need to go low. We need to go into high schools and talk to young people who have no clue what they're going to do. Because I don't think people appreciate that, and particularly if you're interested in IT, that we live in a technical world now. Facility management is pretty high tech compared to where it was back in the dinosaur days. And so I think those are the kinds of things we need to talk about. It's very invigorating and exciting, but they don't understand it because nobody talks to them about
Yeah. It's not super sexy, right?
it. It can
could
be. It can be.
We got to make it that way. I think it is too, potentially we mentioned before, mentoring. I think is important. We have a strong mentoring program, but you can't be afraid to not be challenged by a mentoring program. Maybe there's more opportunities for this organization, where's my label? NMFT, to create maybe a mentoring program for folks with lots of facility knowledge to reach down into colleges and in high schools. We can have our own mentoring program, not just for women, but for men, to realize, hey, there's opportunity here for everyone to get into this. Mentoring is important.
I think you're also seeing the professional organizations that are out there. There's a number of them now for women with WIMCO and AFCOM and whatnot, that they have. Some have, women in technology type of groups that are specifically for females, that are starting to become much more engaged with the universities and colleges in their areas. I know our AFCOM team back in Minneapolis is looking to partner with the University of Minnesota to try to get a much bigger presence for, and there we've got design build, so we've got the engineers, we've got the data center people, we've got the facilities people, we've got electricians, we've got pipe fitters, we've got all kinds of folks that are involved in that. And they're really trying to spread that word, right? That these are, because not only are we not seeing a lot of females, we're just not seeing a lot of people moving into the trades, right? And so how do we really increase that number of people in the trades? Because we still need them. We're going to need them, even with all the automation and things that we see coming along. And you're seeing that even in industry, that there's a bigger push now for more trades and getting back to some of the trades that have maybe lost some of their glory from years past, but they're the critical foundations of what we're built upon. So how do we bring that back? And a lot of organizations are starting to create those relationships with the tech colleges, the community colleges, and the universities that are around to try to spur that interest while we still have students that are learning.
Good evening. A question that really ties in the recruitment and skills building. I would love to hear from each of you your number one trick to recruit that next talent, whether it's succession and generational planning or skill filling of those gaps. For me in the room, one of my ninja tricks in the industry is I present routinely to an area university, public administration, urban and regional planning, non-traditional fields. I talk up the field of facilities management without ever actually acknowledging that's one of my divisions that I'm over, talking about if you had a dozen dead birds on the ground, what would anybody do? They don't have a clue where I'm going with these. But at the end, I landed in that's all facilities management, and any of those problem-solving skills, if any of that's of interest to you, come talk to me after. It's shocking how few students actually email, call, follow up, but if they do, I immediately offer them an internship and I hire most everyone full-time. They don't know that, but that's my behind-the-scenes trick. I'm wondering if you yourself or from the industry have seen people that have other ninja tricks of how to almost suck folks into the industry that offer various skills or resources. Thank you.
Gosh, what do you think, Stormy?
Something similar to that, actually. I have talked to high school students in years past, and often you kind of start off the conversation, what if you went to work every day and these 10 things happened? Most people don't have the kind of experiences that we have every day. You wouldn't have an experience where something would go wrong with an elevator, perhaps, or you would get to look at the design plan for a new laboratory, or you would get to figure out, that you could buy a new fleet of vehicles, or you would get to solve another kind of problem. We solve, if you were to, open a fan, we are every one of those fronds in that fan because we touch on so many activities that go on. And once you kind of hit that spark, all of a sudden people say, gosh, you don't get bored in facilities. I've never heard of people who get bored in facilities management. You can't possibly be bored because your day is so unusual in many ways. So I think it's the uniqueness kind of what we do that is a real grabber for many people, young people.
I think also if we look forward to what the digital era, Internet of Things is going to, how that changes it, right? So we have something that, as you alluded to earlier, maybe has lost some of its sex appeal. But now we can start talking about things like Internet of Things and whatnot. All of a sudden people start perking up. Oh, you know, maybe that's something. So, and it's not being untruthful. It certainly is. I mean, that's the way the business is going. That's the way our smart buildings are going. That's the way our data centers in my world are going. And we need people that are going to be able to grasp those concepts, to take those concepts and run and to develop them and to build businesses, right? So solving problems is something that we certainly need, but we also need people that are excited about some of the new tendencies that are coming at us. And I think those are some things that, although not super ninja, they are certainly things that we can put out there as this is real. These are challenges that we need to address and be ready for as they're coming down the pipeline to us. So we need highly skilled people that are excited about these types of challenges and learning these and bringing the organization ahead. And I think that that's one thing that in my last recruitment, that was a big deal for the person that I just hired. They will be significantly different in their role than what the rest of the team was because they wanted to learn that, right? So they came in and they said, yeah, and we said, we're not looking for just a heavy lifter, somebody that can pick up parts or install parts, or cable something. We need somebody that's really going to be a planning analyst, that's going to worry about budgets, that's going to carry us forward and to move us ahead.
If I may capitalize on this whole conference, I'm an interior designer out of the Old Town Alexandria, Virginia area. And I often step outside of the box because I feel that the different conferences I attended, all of the men and women can utilize my services. I perform government, commercial, and residential projects. And one of the things I find when I go to furniture market in High Point, North Carolina, many of the designers, even when I'm in my studio working, we will call and say, do you know anyone who does this, that, and the other? And so when I got the email regarding this conference, I thought, perhaps I should attend. And my focus was to collect as much information as possible and take this information, because I do government, commercial, and residential. And I'm EVO certified in the state of Virginia, so I'm going after a lot of the colleges and universities. And the procurement officers in some of these positions, they have me doing things outside of my area of expertise. But I take it on because I'm a small business, right? And I also have hired a few interns to help me. And like next month, I'll be going down to market, and I'm taking 3 interns under my umbrella, okay? And I thought, since we're asking about, do you know anyone who does this? But this conference has a laundry list of business that we, as designers, can interact with. And facility management, I am just so elated to see so many women at this conference. I think it's an excellent conference. I've learned so much. And my card, I came in yesterday, and of course, Old Town, it was snowing. My husband said, they may have canceled. And I said, I don't think so, because these ladies and gentlemen are coming from around the world to this conference, and I'm going to go. So I got in my truck, and I just drove very slowly, but by the time I got to the Baltimore area, it was not as bad. So with me saying all of this, all of the information I have collected today, I'm going to go back and put it into my database because this is reference materials I can use. I'm licensed and bonded, and the general contractors I utilize are licensed and bonded too. So if I need someone, once I've gone through the Better Business Bureau, of course it's going to take me some time because I'm working on some projects, and I'm home-based, so sometimes I'm up at 2 and 3 o'clock at night working. But the information I've gathered from this conference, I will reach out to those different businesses and also share it with other designers who are looking for the businesses. You know, it's all about referring each other, yes? As long as we are professionally driven, and also the interns who are coming out of college, they want to learn too. And who's best to refer information and train them than those of us who have gotten some, how do you say it, some road underneath our belts or what have you? Perhaps I said that wrong, but I think this is an excellent conference, and thank you so very much for allowing me to communicate this. Thank you.
So it sounds like to me, what you're saying is you're kind of getting outside of your comfort zone. You may not have gone to this conference before to perhaps build on the lady that was just up. What we could perhaps do is maybe get into more of, we talked about Internet of Things, but I come from the sustainability world. Perhaps we need to encourage folks in sustainability, smart buildings, to look and consider facilities more. Maybe we can go to additional conferences or have a presence there from a women in facilities management perspective, so that folks consider that in sustainability. Facility fits in perfectly. Perhaps it fits in perfectly with architecture. I think that's what you mentioned. You were in architecture. Maybe we need to do, get out there more and a little it's not cross training, but cross pollination between those organizations, those conferences. We could do that, I think, better. We at Sodexo, we're also talking about starting a women in facilities management, a global. I don't know if Sodexo is the 19th largest employer in the world. That voice could be huge to bringing in others within, and we need to encourage more companies to do that, I think. But we're only in our infancy of doing that. We should be further along, probably, but we're going to do that. Naomi? Oh, sorry.
No, not a problem. So starting off with the school thing, you went around to a lot of women and they said they kind of fell into the industry. That's a joke across all FMs.
Yeah.
Nobody went to school for it. School was very rarely heard as how I got into it. Mainly if you go to any forum, if you go online, people are talking about how they fell into it. I come from an engineering firm, but my engineering firm is now pretty much half and half women and men. And I think that's where you're starting to see the shift. If you look at contractors, engineers, architects, people that deal with buildings on the design side, they're starting to get into it on the operations side. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing it more and more filter. The other problem is the trades, is not getting in the manager level with the trades. And that problem hit because everybody was pushed to go to college. So now we have all these people going to college, coming out with degrees. They're overqualified for the trades. And a lot of things is going into high school, trying to get these people in there. And to answer your question back there, yes, we get women into FM as much as possible. As much as I say that, we get anybody we can come be part of FM, because there is that gap. So.
One question that I have, we've talked about how grabbing, people from high school and getting people into those entry levels. I'm wondering what should be as an industry or as women in the industry, what should we see as our responsibility towards helping other women advance through their career, supporting other women? What are the good ways that we can make that happen? I know that companies have all sorts of initiatives, mentorship initiatives and the like, and I'm not sure how effective those are. What do you think are like the effective tools that women should be leveraging to help other women advance and do well?
For advancement, I think, and something that it actually came from my male bosses was, hey, you are good enough. It is okay to get outside your comfort zone. You can do this. I know you can do anything that you put your mind to, but it's having, maybe reaching down, and sometimes it's hard to do that, to reaching down to folks and just to have that and begin that conversation that hey, and have that mentorship type of relationship with folks, I think is important. Maybe it's reaching outside your comfort zone. It's hard to reach out to people and offer yourself up for that. I would also encourage to seek out the training, seek out the certifications is important. I want to hear what you have, Stormy, too, of how have you encouraged folks to,
I think one of the things that seems to work pretty well is shadowing. And so you invite a prospective person who might be interested in our world to shadow somebody so that they can see what happens. And they see the strategic end of it. You take them to a board meeting.